Hey everybody, it's Ron from Ron's Computer Videos. There's been a couple of times recently where I've read some forum posts where people have picked up a BlueSCSI and seem a little bit confused about how to get started with that when they just have a classic Mac that they want to go ahead and get a hard drive up and running on. Maybe the drive has failed on their current machine. They don't have a really good way of kind of getting started on things and just kind of need a push in the right direction. And I was in that boat too when I first kind of started getting back into this hobby. And it was only through other people just kind of taking time out of their busy day to bring me up to speed on some stuff that I was able to kind of get things started. So it's really, really tough these days when you have a Macintosh that maybe has an 800K floppy drive. It's next to impossible to get those floppies made, with a modern machine, especially if you have a PC or something. Sure, yeah, I mean, you can probably make 1.44 megabyte Mac floppies all day long with a USB floppy drive, but those 800K disks are kind of elusive. So if you've got sort of a Mac Plus, or you've got like an early SE, or you've got a Mac 2 or something, like, how do you really get started? And probably the easiest way, even if you do have a high density floppy drive, is to set up an emulation platform to get all of your stuff ready to go, and then transfer that to your SCSI Blue and boot that up in your real Mac and just take off and have fun. So it really helps to kind of know a couple of different resources. And I hope to demystify some of those things, and I'll make sure to have plenty of links down in the doobly-doo, so that way that people that want to play along at home can do it. Maybe you've got a different way of doing things. I would love to hear it. Please post in the comments and let me know. There is always something more to learn in this hobby, and the only way you can do that is just to not have an ego. So I want to hear your better way of doing things. So please, 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 please let me know. All right. So the way that I kind of do it is this. It's all going to start with sort of that, like I was saying, a Macintosh emulation platform, so that way that you can set things up in there and then transfer it to the SCSI Blue when you're done. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I have some sort of pre-made links up here that kind of cover some of the things I want to talk about and some of the sites I want to share. And then I have some files that are already downloaded just for the sake of expediency here. And I will go through and show you everything that I can. I will try not to skip any steps. And if I fall along the way, we're just going to pick up and keep going. So we'll try to do this all in one shot. All right. The first thing you want to do is to download a emulator for classic Macintosh machines. And there's Sheep Shaver. And I think there's like Pear PC and Basilisk 2. And I mean, there's a ton out there. You'll have to go with whichever one you think is best. But this tutorial is based around using Basilisk 2. So where do you get that? Well, we can go out and we can look at the Wikipedia article. And, there's a number of these emulators, and this one's been around a good long time. You can go out to the homepage for the project, and there are some like precompiled binaries and stuff for PCs for Macintosh and BOS and Amigas and things like that. But the only place that I know of to get the one for PC is out on the Immaculation forums. And out here, you can just click, you can download the, this will take you to a forum article. They were having forum problems earlier today. Let's see if they're still having forum problems. Yeah, they're having forum problems, but probably by the time you watch this, it'll be ready to go. But basically, you can go out there and you can download the latest version for the PC, which I think is, if you're running a PC, which I believe was released sometime in September. So it's like 02, 09, 2021. Keep in mind that Europeans put the day before the month. So don't let that mess you up, Western Hemisphere people. But what you want to do is go ahead and get that downloaded. And once you get that downloaded, you're going to want to download some other things as well. So you will want to go out to Macintosh Garden and you're going to want to search for Apple Legacy Software Recovery CD. And what this is, if you've never heard of it, is a disc, I guess, that they used to send out to repair shops in the 90s. So that way that you could very quickly make floppies for a customer, or you could set this up on your workgroup server and mount the CD remotely and basically do installs on customer machines when they came in. Well, some very kind person was nice enough to archive this off and get this ready to go. In our example here, because just in my terms of fandom, I'm a fan of everything kind of up to System 761. You could do System 8 and all that type of jazz, but this specific tutorial doesn't really cover that, but the steps are really the same. So you could go out and download the System 8 version. There's another one of these that covers newer operating systems. So you could go out and set that up. But in our example here, let's imagine that we have like an LC3 or something like that, and we want to be able to have the whole world of 32-bit addressing, but yet at the same time be able to go backwards if we needed backward compatibility with an app. So an LC3 is probably a great machine for that, especially if you want to play older games. So go ahead, get this downloaded. And once you get it downloaded, it's a zip file. Go ahead and we'll extract that zip file. We're going to do that as a separate step here in just a moment. But once you get that downloaded, you can go ahead and go to the next step, which is you want to go out to SavageTaylor's SavageTaylor.com's download section, where they have some pre-rolled images for classic Macs. And the one that we're going to grab is there is a 2 gigabyte drive file that's got 7.5.5, and it has a bunch of extra utilities and stuff. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up, because how do you get the decompression program for your Mac onto your Mac when on a lot of the sites they're compressed already? So, I mean, it might be an SCA, but sometimes those don't survive when you start messing with them on newer Macs or on PCs, because they start messing around with the resource fork on the file, and then things don't work and things get really pear-shaped really quick. And so it's just easier to start with this because a lot of that stuff is just pre-rolled in there. All the basic utilities that you need to get started, formatting utilities, drivers for a bunch of different hardware. There's also some great utilities that are kind of set into different categories, where things that are for System 6 are marked one way, stuff that's for System 7 is marked another way. This is just a great resource. So go ahead and you can download we're going to download the 7.5.5, the 2 gigabyte image. So after you get that, what we're going to do is you're going to also need some of the blank HDA images from out there on the BlueSCSI project page. So we're going to go out here to, I think I have this linked. Let's see. Yes, I do have this linked. We're going to go straight to the man. We're going to go straight to Eric Helgeson's page, because he has everything linked out here. But these are pre-formatted HFS blank images that are all prepped and ready to go for SCSI Blue, or BlueSCSI rather. And you can download this archive. This is just a tiny little file. I think it's like 45 megabytes or something like that. But inside of it, there are a bunch of virtual disk images or that we can use to go ahead and kind of build our machine from. And then it will already have all of the Apple SCSI driver for like the virtual disk. It'll have all that stuff baked into it, so that way that we don't have to jump through a bunch of extra hoops to make this work. And I know a lot of people kind of get tied up in that, where they start formatting things and they use like Lido, or they'll use try to use Silver Lining and stuff, and some of those things have problems. All of these just use like the basic Apple driver, so they just work. They may not be the absolute fastest, and I know that people have been started to talk about using some alternative drivers and stuff, but we just want compatibility and we want kind of ease of use. So we're going to stick with these. So go ahead and you can get those downloaded as well. And once you have those all downloaded, we're ready to begin. Let me go ahead and I'm going to get this window out of the way. And I'm just going to minimize that. Okay, so we have our links. We got all that ready to go. Great. Okay, so now here's what we're going to do. We have our files that we have downloaded. There is that the Apple Legacy Recovery CD ISO. We need that. Here's the System 5.5 2 GB image that we downloaded off of Savage Taylor. We're going to go ahead and extract that real fast, or as fast as my machine can. And at this point, we're done with that zip file. And like I was saying, on the files that you download from the BlueSCSI page, you have all of these virtual disk files. We're going to start with a 2 GB just because that is maybe the easiest in terms of giving us space to grow. So let's start there. So as you saw, I just drug the 2 GB HDA zip file there, and now we have to go through and actually extract it. So now this little tiny file gets really big, and there we go. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep that Mac HD zip just in case I need some of those in the future. As you can see, it's a 4 MB file, so it's not taking up any space. It's not bugging anything. All right, so you've got your files. You've got your emulator. What's the other thing you need for your emulator? You need a ROM from a classic Mac. So you can go to the usual places to download something like that. We're not going to cover that here, but let's go ahead and let's launch the emulator. There's Basilisk 2 with its very dated sort of user interface. Maybe one day this will get updated. But let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure, and just for fun here, I'm going to make it a larger window for us to work on just so we can see things a little bit better. Make sure it's got, I'm going to give it 16 megabytes of RAM so we don't lose anything. This machine is kind of based around 2CI. All right, so let's go ahead, let's add our volume images. So I have those floating over here on my C drive. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and add that Apple Legacy Recovery CD. And I'm going to go back out here again. And I'm going to add the 2 GB HDA file. That's from the BlueSCSI project page. And last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the Savage Taylor archive, which is the 7.5.5 _ 2 GB volume. That has, don't forget, that has all of our fun, cool utilities on it. So, all right, so we have this all ready to go. We've got our bootable legacy ISO here, and we've got all the rest of our files. Let's boot our emulator up. Okay, so here's what we got. We have some stuff that I guess this is the latest version. They changed the Savage Taylor. They changed that quite a bit. So it's always worth going out and downloading and checking out the latest version. Okay, so as you can see right here, we have booted from what it thinks is a hard drive, but is really that ISO file. And on that ISO file, we've got all kinds of fun stuff. And this should boot most Macs. And especially is going to boot this emulated Mac that we've got set up here. But let's go ahead, let's take a look at our drives. So there's that 2 GB drive that we downloaded from the project page. So this is what we're going to install our operating system to. You can name this whatever you want, but I'm going to leave it as Mac HD. All right, so what we're going to do is this. Let's go ahead and off the Legacy Recovery CD, we're going to go to Mac OS. Let's go ahead and let's install 7.5.5. And we will just navigate out here to the directories. As you can see, we got a 7.5.3 install, and then you can update later to 7.5.5. We'll do that in a second step. So let's go ahead and we're going to do the net install. And what this will do as soon as we agree to the EULA for disk copy, it's going to go ahead and it's going to mount all those CDs. Or I'm sorry, all those floppies. And then it'll run the installer for us. So we want to go ahead, we're going to switch disks. Hey, there's a Mac HD. That's our drive that we're going to set up for our virtual, or for our new disk file. And from here, you can do a custom install and basically just tell it that you want the a universal system for any Macintosh. And what that's going to do for you is that's going to get you basically a lot of control panels and extensions you may not necessarily need. So I've had good luck with just doing an easy install. So we're just going to do that because we can always fix that later based on a step that I'm going to show you here in a minute. So we've got that all set up. Let's click install and treat ourselves to the world's fastest install of system 7.5.3. I just remember the old days sitting here with floppy disks and oh my gosh, like you would just be waiting. You'd just be waiting forever. And this is quite a few discs. How many does it say on here? It says 16 discs. Yeah, so that is going to take just a second. But nowhere near as long as doing this on a real Mac. So this isn't too terribly bad. All right, and there you go. That's it. It's all done. We've got our operating system on the that partition. So I hit quit. It's going to go ahead and unmount all those floppies for us. And let's go ahead and do this. I do not believe that you can now in turn do the 7.5.5 install booted from this, because I think there's something about the installer that you have to boot from the drive you want to update. So now that we've got this done, let's go ahead and shut down. And we'll bring Basilisk 2 up again. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change our boot order. So I'm going to drag the 2 GB image from the project page up to the top. I'm going to hit start. And here we are. Now we've booted from that. Let's go ahead and verify. Yep, 7.5.3. Looking good. All right, so now we can go back out on the legacy recovery. And we're going to go ahead and go back out to Mac OS. And 7.5.3, 7.5.3. Hey, 7.5.5 update. Great. We'll agree to the EULA again. And there we go. So it detected that 7.5.3 was on our primary drive, which I think if you try to do this the other way, the switch disk will be grayed out. So you won't get very far with that. So let's go ahead and hit install. And this will go pretty quick. This is only 3 floppies. And there you go. So let's go ahead and reboot one more time. This may act, yeah, I was going to say this might be a little wonky in the emulator. So, but there you go. It went ahead and it restarted, so that's good. Let's go ahead and let's verify our version of the operating system. Yep, 7.5.5. So we now have our bootable 7.5.5 OS partition. I don't know about you guys, but I normally throw all the patch notes and all that into the Apple Extra directory. Although I've done that since like forever. Okay, so we've got that out of the way. And that's all looking good. Hey, and this boots. At this point, you could probably just copy that out there. But what we're going to do is we are going to seed our newly installed setup with some of the cool utilities from the Savage Taylor image. So there are a ton of things out here. There is a minimal system 7.5.5 directory that they include, just so that way that these things are bootable if you're going to maybe use it with a different SCSI emulator solution. So we're going to ignore that. There's another directory. It's called Other Systems, and if you were to get into that, you could set up kind of multiple different versions of the operating system. We're just going to leave it here. We're not going to mess with it. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to copy everything from this image over to our new bootable disk image from the project. So that way that we've got some good utilities and things like that to get us started. And this only takes just a second or two. Now, to make sure that we get these, if you want these cool desktop shortcuts, you will have to copy those to the drive as well. So now that we have everything moved over and looking all sort of janky here, don't forget, you can always go to Views, and we'll snap to grid. And I think if you hold down the Command key and clean up by name, yeah, there you go. So it's a little wonky on a PC, but what isn't? So, all right. So we now have all of this set up and ready to go. Hey, really cool. Let's go ahead and let's shut this down. And let's go ahead and bring the emulator up again. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove these other images and just boots purely off of our newly created disk image. So let's say start her up. Hey, and it still works. So very pleased. We can even drag those icons out to the desktop now. And man, it just looks like we've got a machine that's basically ready to use. I don't know how much housekeeping you do on your machines, but I like mine to at least look like a little bit organized. So we will go through and do that. Don't forget to read the README. These guys, they put a lot of time and trouble into these images, so it's probably worth checking out and reading what it is. And I'm sure that this arrangement right here is just making people's skin crawl, but that's okay. All right, so we've got our machine. It's all ready to go. We can transplant this onto an SD card and stick that in our BlueSCSI, and basically we're just ready to use it. So now this is all well and good, but what happens if something gets borked on this system install and you don't want to completely reinvent the wheel with an emulator again in the future? Here's my advice. Let's go ahead and we're going to shut this down for just a second. And we're going to go out back to those project files. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a 1 GB image out of here. And I'm going to go back into our emulator. And I'm going to go ahead and re-add the... Wish you could make this bigger. Man, wouldn't that be handy? I'm going to go ahead and re-add our recovery CD, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that 1 GB image from the project that we just created. So there you go. All right, let's start her back up. And what we have now is we've got that CD image loaded again, and we have our 1 GB image there. So what I'm going to do, and this isn't all that you know, groundbreaking of a thing to do, but I'm going to go ahead and copy the contents of that disk image, including this little hidden system folder that's what makes that bootable, over to our new legacy recovery disk image. So let's go ahead and we got that copy. That looks good, but let's test it. So let's go ahead and let's shut down again. And we close that window. And let's go ahead and we're going to get the recovery CD out of there. Let's go ahead and change the boot order. We're going to put the recovery CD at the top. Start it up. Hey, it works. So now we are basically ready to go with getting our SD card prepared for use on our Mac. So everything looks good. Everything boots. I'm very pleased. Let's go ahead and shut that down. So now what we've got is we have these 2 HDA files here that represent the 2 GB is our System 7.5.5 install, and with all the cool utilities from our friends over at Savage Taylor. And now we have this 1 gigabyte image that's basically a copy of that recovery CD. So if we ever had to go through and redo something, it's very easy. We can just rename a file on the SD card or change our boot order on our Mac, and we can boot off of that, do an OS reinstall, experiment, break things, just have fun, which is kind of the whole point of this, right? All right. Now, the thing we've got to do at this point, sorry, I've already got that open. The thing we need to do at this point is we need to go ahead and name our files based on, let's drag that window back over, based on what the project, kind of how they want you to have things named. So I think if you go to usability or usage, the usage article here is going to go ahead and tell you everything you need to know about how you need to name your files so that they're actually bootable once you copy them to the SD card. Oh, let me get that text on the screen. My big head is in the way. Isn't that how it always is? All right. So we're going to go ahead and where's our files? There's our files. Okay. So we can look and we can see some of the examples of how to name the file, and based on what it says kind of in the notes here is you start with HD, and then you have to say the X in this example represents the SCSI ID that's attached to you, which can be 0 through 6. Remember, Macs always boot from the highest number first. So if you make your file 6, it's always going to be the one that boots. If you make it 0, it's going to consider other things in the SCSI chain before it looks down to whatever that partition is, or whatever that virtual disk file is. And then the Y is LUN, which I think kind of in the SCSI scanner where you could have like multiple SCSI cards and they could kind of operate at different LUNs. That's logical something number. I don't know. Anyway, and then the sector count. But all of those base images you can download from the project are all like 512 sectors. So we're just going to leave that alone. But what we can do is we're going to go ahead and we can copy the example here, and then we'll modify it to be whatever we want. So this is our bootable file. We're going to go ahead, we're going to name it. And if we named it that would be good enough, as long as your machine is going to boot from address 1 on your system. So I want to make sure this boots every time, unless I go in to change it. So I'm going to say 6. Remember, you can't make it 7. Your Macintosh's SCSI controller, or your Macintosh itself, basically represents 7 on the chain. So that's it. That's pretty much it. Now, this might get confusing if you just have a bunch of files with random names. How do I remember what's there? And that's where you can actually go in, and if you read the rest of the instructions here, it will tell you that you can add some additional sort of text onto your files. So that way it's going to ignore everything after the sector size. You can't make these too long. You can't go too crazy, but I can say that it's system 7.5.5, and that should be acceptable to the system, I would sure think. Let's go ahead, and we've also got, so let's prep that recovery thing that we set up as well. So we're gonna go ahead, paste it in again, just because I'm lazy and I don't like to type. And since it's a CD, of course it has to go at 3, right? That's like the default. It can be whatever you want, man. I don't care. So, all right. But we're going to call this is our, if you do try to put in like a big long name like the Apple's Legacy Recovery CD or something like that, I think that's going to run afoul of the controller. So we're just going to call it Apple Legacy Recovery CD. And that should be good enough for me to look and remember what these files are. Now at this point, you're ready to copy them to your SD card. So you can copy them to your SD card, boot, away you go. It will just work. And there you go. You now have a working bootable sort of Mac OS install without having to have a real Mac to bridge this all over for you. Now, if you're wanting to do some things that are outside the scope of what this video showed, I'd love to hear about those too. Again, the only way you learn is to just kind of keep yourself open and just, listen to other people's ideas. So if you have a cool way of doing this that's not necessarily the way I did it, please let me know in the comments. If there's always an easier way, I'd love to hear it. So now, you have been in the video for who knows how many minutes. I haven't even looked at the timer. But there's something really cool that I want to announce. And that is that, other than congratulations, that you've got your, you've got a working Macintosh now after probably many years of fretting over, dead drives and, not having the stuff to get it set up and all that. But I wanted to talk about something really cool that about the project itself, which is they have a really great Discord channel that you can go and check out. That's the Open Retro SCSI Discord. So if you are setting up your device and you have some questions, or if you have some concerns about kind of how your setup is working, or basically it is like just a ton of people that have very intimate knowledge on this hardware and setting it up for classic Macs and all sorts of Amigas, and I mean just every platform you could think of. And so it's always a great place to kind of go and ask questions. So something else to know maybe about BlueSCSI to keep in mind is that it's licensed under a non-commercial license, meaning that it's open and you can buy one from authorized resellers on SCSI.blue. Or you can, kind of build your own boards and for your own personal use based on the design files out there. And I'm sure if you were interested in doing something like that, the project leader, which is Eric Helgeson, he can definitely get you pushed in the right direction on that. So, but here's the really, really cool thing. When I was talking about doing this video in another stream that I did a little while back, Eric reached out to me and he said, hey, wouldn't it be really great to give away a SCSI Blue or BlueSCSI to a viewer? And I said, yeah, that'd be really, really great. But only if you would come on and talk about maybe some cool things that are happening with the project, and maybe some innovations and things like that you've been making. And he was like, yeah, he was very, very nice to agree to do that. So on, what's the date? Oh gosh, what is today? Today is Wednesday, October 20th. So what we will do is we will get together with Eric on Wednesday, October 27th, 2001 at 8 p.m. Central. And what we'll do is we'll do just a bit of chat to talk about things that have been changing with the project, new and cool and exciting things that I'm sure that people that are retro enthusiasts of all stripes would be interested in hearing. And he's going to give away a BlueSCSI to one lucky viewer. And I think he has some really cool stuff. He's kind of sneak peeked a few things with me that I can't discuss at the moment. We'll let him talk about it next week. So what I would do is watch this space for a upcoming live stream, and we're going to talk with Eric about what is cool and new in the project. So if you have not purchased one yet and are interested in doing so, I'll guide you over to the project's official page, SCSIblue.com, where you can buy a BlueSCSI. And if there are a bunch of different sellers here. I know Eric himself is kind of on a brief hiatus just because of all the updates and cool new projects and stuff that he's working on. But I've bought them from several of the different sellers on here. I know that our buddy Bruce from Recap Mac is selling these as well. And Tom Barber, really nice guy. He's a patron. So, hey, thanks, Tom. And I even bought one of the PowerBook ones that I still need to do a video about, but one of these days. So anyway, that's basically it for tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and taking a look at something that I've seen a few people struggling with recently, and I just wanted to maybe give people kind of a good push in the right direction. Again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put links and information down in the doobly-doo, so hopefully people will be able to kind of do some of these things on their own. And if you do have a different way of doing things, I'd love to hear it. I know Eric has a couple of cool project ideas coming up that he might discuss next week. We'll see. And everybody, have a wonderful night. And remember, Apple II forever. This video was brought to you with the help of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to know more about how you can support the channel for as little as $1 a month, please click the link in the video description. Thanks for watching.